Hello, it's me. It's my face. And I got a dragonfly shadow on me. I wanted to come in today and talk a little bit about shadow work. It's been coming up a lot on the tarot readings that I've been doing. And it's the you've done the work. And so these are your spiritual and um, 3D realm rewards that are coming to you for having done the work. But I recognize that not everybody's done the work. Not everybody even knows how to start doing the work. And so I kind of want, it's funny because we're dealing with shadows here. Shadow of the dragonfly, and that is a lotus there. Can't see. Anyways, so I just kind of wanted to share and I don't know, maybe help support anyone who is thinking about or in the process of doing the work. Um, yeah, because it is, oh my goodness, it's lonely, first of all. Yeah, that was Mims. She agreed with me. Um, it's painful. Um, it's it's dark. It's dingy. So the process, the only way that I can, well, one of the ways that I can think of explaining is through metaphors because that's how my brain works. And it's like doing the shadow work is going into the attic. So if the attic is your mental, emotional, honey, come here. Do you want to come up here? No. Um, where was I? Attic. If the house is representative of your vessel, um, the attic is that place where throughout our lifetimes we stuff a bunch of stuff out of sight, out of mind. And, you know, we don't even go in there. It's dark. We just keep throwing stuff into there. So doing the shadow work is going into that space and dealing with all the stuff and shining light on all the dark spots. And you know, you're grabbing this box and you're looking through and you're looking at everything individually and really looking at it like, what is this? How is it affecting my life? Is it something that I need to keep? Is it something that I need to recycle? Is it something that I need to throw away? You know, is it something I need to burn? And and so it's a tedious process. Um, and it's scary because sometimes you come across things living in there. Sometimes you find that there is wood rot all up the side in the corner, and there's like some weird fungus, you know, sprouting back there. And then you know, then you're like, oh, well, I'm going to need more than just a bunch of boxes. I'm going to need some cleaning spray. I'm going to need a blowtorch, right? Whatever you need. And so and this is why it's lonely, lonely work, because you can't hire a company to come in and do it for you. They don't know what to do with everything. And there's a lot of good stuff up there. There's a lot of stuff that just needs to be healed, that just needs to be patched up, that needs to be honored and, you know, passed on to other loved ones or your children or whatever. And so yeah, this is what I do and or what I've done. And through it all, it's just suddenly there's just this space and it's beautiful up there. It's beautiful up in the attic. And now there's all this room and the lights shining in. And I don't know if you've seen Cinderella, the new virgin, and she gets like moved up to the attic. Um, that attic is gorgeous. I mean, it needed some love, but just yeah, it was gorgeous, right? And when it's constantly in dark and covered in a bunch of crap that you don't want to deal with, you're never truly recognizing the potential of that space. And remember, this is a space within your home, like it's a part of you. And um, so mostly, and this is that integration of the shadow, right? Is the doing what you need to do, refiguring that space so that you could be whole, so you can be an entire house. And yes, a cellar, you know, use a cellar, or um, maybe there's also spaces in your cellar that needs to be, or your basement, because basements can be a scary place to be into, and an easy place for things to exist unknowingly, right, or unconsciously. So, so yeah, I guess an example of doing the work. I don't know. It's all incredibly personal, and individual to you, right? So you're also going to find parts of yourself that you've lost up there that you know, have been denied or haven't felt like that, had separated from you and have been hiding in these dark spaces. So not very long ago, quite recently, I discovered a part of myself when I was in a place where I'm ready to accept that I have intuitive gifts, that I have these spiritual gifts, and what happened is I recognized that these gifts have been there this whole time throughout my life, and then it's going through like, well, where did I start doubting it? Where did I start not trusting my inner knowing and my intuition? And what were the contributing factors to that, right? Like people, places, and things um, that all kind of blur or distort your truth. And so, because I was sensitive, there were instances throughout my life where I got these feelings, I got these inner knowings, these intuitive nudges that I didn't want to be true because they were awful, they were gross, they involved people that I loved, whatever reason, right? And so I would start denying my gifts or my truth, um, by pushing it away, being like, well, I must be wrong, right? Because this can't be true, and stuff like that, right? So part of the um, reintegration of all those parts that I denied throughout my past was accepting that I was right and that those things were true. And that's a hard thing right there, right? Because you spend your life trying to convince yourself or talk yourself out of a truth being or a thing that you felt being true, but you're denying those parts of yourself. And so, anyways, for me to get to a place where I'm like, okay, I have these things, I am this person, right? Um, I had to go back through and make it true all the way back down the line, and that was really, really hard. I mean, it changes the perspective of all those versions of yourself throughout your life, and it's really important to have level of compassion, right? Like compassion towards those versions of yourself that was too scared to honor or hold true your own inner truths, um, and really embracing them. And so, yeah, all the memories that resurface, all the little nudges and knowings that you had, that you denied, that you pushed away, that you said no, that can't be true. You're suddenly faced with that, and that's super daunting, right? Like, I'm 46 years old, so that's 46 years of previous life, or yeah, 46 years of accumulative moments of denying myself, suddenly all like boom right there. And so there you go, there's a box, right? Like I thought I had done all this work and that I was done with it, and then I find this little secret door, and oh look, there's a bunch more boxes in there, right? And so and yeah, just like a box, it accumulates bit by bit over time, but when you find that box, it's got everything in it, all there, right there. And so so that's a hard process. But um, I mean, and not to discourage you or anything, but I think it's an ongoing process. I think it's a constant revelation of areas that you have overlooked or you missed or that still needs to be worked on. Or it's like cleaning a space. It can be completely clean, but eventually over time it gets a little dirty and dingy and you got to clean it again, right? But because you've put in the majority of the work, it's no longer daunting. You've got tools right with you that you can access to deal with these things. So another analogy that I had was doing the shadow work is being in a pit of mud. And no matter what you do, no matter what you touch, you are just getting mud all over you, covered in mud, right? And doing, and I think that's where a lot of people who haven't done the work exist. I like the mud analogy because you're grasping to get out of the mud, or you're holding people there with you and you touch them and now you've got your mud on them, right? It's like hurt people, and also being energetically affected or influenced or whatever. There is this level of taking on other people's mud. So people who are right in the throes of their mud bath, you lend a hand or try to offer them something, and now you've got some of their mud on you, right? It's inadvertent. And through doing the work, you're creating a washing system so that when you do get some mud on you, you can just rinse and you're good. And that's the importance of cleansing yourself from other people's energy, being empathetic really, or being an empath, part of, well, okay, this was another one of my shadow aspects, was survival. I had to emotionally regulate the people in my life in order to receive love, basically, in short story. Um, and so, in order to do this, what I did was I would extend my energy out to read the room, to read the other, and so I can assess and see and anticipate and know what I needed to fix. What were the contributing factors to this thing? How can I fix this? How can I make this better? And so, having your energy open like that, um, well, it becomes a skill set first of all. But if you're doing that unconsciously, are conditioned to do that unconsciously. You're doing that out in public spaces, you're doing that out in restaurants. And I know for me, I would get extremely exhausted from being in public. I would avoid public spaces because of that, because I would come home and just literally feel like I had the weight of the world on me, because I did. I was absorbing everything around me, pulling in all this information. And then, of course, being ADHD, being highly sensitive, everything's just completely magnetized, and you're doing that anyway. So part and parcel of this is why it ended up leading me down a spiritual path, because we're dealing with energy, and that's it. That's the source of all, right? So anyways, where was I going with that? I was going into the realms, the mud bog, the washing station. Yeah. And these are the tools that you create for yourself. It's just like when you have to deal with a room, when you go up into that attic and you pull out a box, you set yourself up for success. You get a box for recycling, you get a box for garbage, you get a box for, dropping off at the thrift store, and then you get a keeper box. And so you pull a thing out of the attic, you look at it, and then which box is it going into? And the more efficient that you get at dealing with your own crap, the easier it is to deal with your own crap, right? Like this process that I went through about to acknowledge and accept that I am intuitive, that I have always had these inner knowings um, and abilities. Um, I had to accept all the truths that I had denied in the past. And because I had the system of dealing with these things already in place, the process, was like 48 hours max. Um, and that was really helpful. Like, that's super helpful. Where before, there's like this purging and this releasing and this acknowledging, oh my goodness, you build momentum. You do. And it does get easier, but it's really, really hard. And it's hard to articulate to other people as well. Because it's like a dream, right? Like, it takes you a half an hour to describe all the ins and outs and circumstances and feelings and whatever that you saw or felt or in the dream, and it still doesn't quite capture what the dream was. Meanwhile, the dream was like a 3-minute thing, right? Because there's so many levels happening simultaneously, and words are just one level, right? So anyways, doing the shadow work is also finding lost versions of yourself, like your inner child, right? Those. Okay, so here's an example. When I was probably 6 or 7, my mom and I lived in a trailer. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, phone call. What was I talking about? My mom and I lived in a trailer, and I remember there was this tree outside of the kitchen window, like somewhere in the yard or whatever, and it was quite a young tree. And I remember climbing up this tree, and then it bent over, and I was hanging upside down, and it scared me, like when it bent over. And so I screamed, and my mom comes running out, and she's just like, what the, right? Thinking I was dying or being murdered or whatever. And then as soon as she comes around the corner, she sees me hovering like this much over the ground, and I'm fine, but I'm scared, right? And so she immediately is like, don't you ever scream like that again, because I scared the crap out of her. I get it. Like, I get it now, right? You look back and especially being a mom and stuff like that, and who knows what was going on in her world at that time, finances and making things work and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden she hears her kid dying, and so she runs out, and turns out she's not. And I remember being told, like, I never want to hear you make that sound again unless you are dying, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like sitting there or hanging there, I couldn't see that I was only this far from the ground. And I think she did end up coming over and like grabbing me off the thing and flipping me over and then giving me a talking to, and leaving that. So none of this is about my mom, right? This isn't about if she did something bad or not, if she did something wrong or not. She was doing the best that she can in that moment, right? But that child version of me that needed in that moment to be held, to be told, you're okay, it's okay, you're safe, look, there's nothing to be scared of. Like, that version of myself didn't get that. And so it was a part of me, a part of my childhood trauma that needed to be healed. And really all it took, like it was me going back to that moment, reliving it, and recognizing what I needed in that moment versus what I got. And again, it's not about blaming. And I think a lot of people avoid the shadow work because, especially when it comes to, being confronted with like your parent inadvertently causing a trauma by being distracted in a moment where you needed their attention, or right. And it seems like such a weird thing. It seems like you're blaming them or making something their fault, and that's not the case at all. This isn't about the other person. This is about an incident that happened in your past where you needed a thing, and for whatever reason you never got it. And so recognizing that, and I think also shining a light on that fact, right? And I think also a good practice that I've been using is reliving the moment and then splicing in the thing that you needed in that moment. So um, yeah, first recognizing, oh, I just needed to be told and reassured and blah 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 blah, and then how would that have gone differently if I received the thing that I needed to receive? And so now we're replaying that instance where my mom came around the corner and she just immediately came to me and grabbed me, pulled me off the tree, and was like, "You're okay, you're safe," don't scream like that again, or whatever. Um, so that's just one off the top of my head example of ways that you can go back and heal those parts, find those parts, and give them the things that they needed in the moment, right? What's up? Are you going out there? Okay. One second. Oh, okay. So yeah, um, that was my story, and I hope it was helpful for you to kind of get a sense of um, these things, ways that you can heal parts of you. There's also finding parts of you, like recognizing you're in a toxic relationship or a karmic cycle or something in your life that you keep having to deal with, and you're like, why, and then tracing it back and discovering like, oh, it's because of this, like having to emotionally regulate as a child. When it's an unconscious behavior, you end up seeking that in all of your other relationships because it's kind of like a way to, well, first of all, it's familiar. It's something you were conditioned to do. There could be levels of chemical dependency on certain feelings that these things give you, like being a victim, right? Victim mentality. Why is this always happening to me? Why do people always treat me this way? Why? I don't deserve this. And it's it becomes a dependency because it's not a forward movement. It's you're stuck in the bog. You're in the mud, right? You're not trying to get out of it. You're just like, why is there mud everywhere? Ah! It's not forward momentum. It's all necessary because eventually, hopefully, you get tired of rolling around in the mud, and then you're like, okay, I got to do something different, right? So not only recognizing like why say you attract narcissistic people in your life. Why do I keep attracting narcissistic people? Why is everybody in my life a narcissist? Well, what are you doing to attract it, right? It's reclaiming your power. It's turning yourself from why does this keep happening to me to what can I do differently so that this doesn't keep happening to me. And part of it is recognizing and giving compassion to the versions of yourself that put up with that crap for so long, right? And being like giving them love because they didn't have enough at the time to get themselves out there and or to recognize the situation for what it was, right? So another instance that comes to mind, it's in my, I think I shared in one of my twin flame depictions, and it was this moment that I healed that happened between me and my person, and in tandem. So the instance was they put themselves out there and showed up in a place that I wasn't expecting, like months after we had split up, and I froze. I didn't know what to do, how to handle anything, but it was fear. It was fear. So the instance kept playing over and over in my head, and I kept, why did I not do anything? Why didn't I see? Why didn't I respond? Why didn't I react? Why didn't I follow up after and be like, what the heck? Like all these things that I could have done, but I didn't. And, I was beating myself up about it in a way because I couldn't understand why. And so finally I replayed the moment and asked myself, what would I have done differently if this happened now? And I played that reel. And it ended up with us coming together and embracing. And I'm reliving this moment in my mind, standing in my kitchen. And, I just reached out and I grabbed them and I just hugged them. And so now I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm hugging myself, and I'm, tears are coming out my face because I'm recognizing that I am healing this moment for myself by also recognizing that that version of me was so fearful, was so scared to put themselves out there that they froze, right? Like it was like I was hugging that version of myself for being too scared to move, and it was powerful. It was super powerful, and I feel so much more at peace with that moment because I recognized that I didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with that situation at the time, right? So it was like forgiving that part of myself while also giving it love. And that's just another example of how we can reclaim these lost parts of ourselves. Because I think what happens, and I've come across this in intuitive energy healing and stuff like that, courses, that every time there's a traumatic something that affects your soul, a little fragment breaks off, and it's like a snapshot of that instance, and it kind of floats around in our energy, and it does affect, right? And we're disconnected from parts of ourselves because we have all these little trauma fragments that are, still in our energy field. um, and so doing the work is also recognizing, acknowledging uh, the versions of yourself that allowed the trauma. And I mean, there are traumas out there that we are just like, there's no way, what could I have done different? And that is also like, there's some things that, you can't, there's nothing you could have done, right? But we still hold ourselves responsible for it in a way. And so, yeah, pouring a lot of love, It's this is the self-love journey, right? Of healing yourself. And the beautiful byproduct of it is no longer needing external validation, because you're holding a frequency of inner strength and love that isn't dependent on anything outside of you, right? Which is a beautiful thing. I think it's a really beautiful thing. It's empowering and it's freeing, right? Because there's so much opportunity to be taken advantage of, to be lied to be deceived when you are dependent on other people. And this is the whole narcissist empath relationship, right? Like, a narcissist will love bomb you and give you all the things that you desperately need on the outside, which is the validation, because they're giving you attention. So therefore you must be worthy, and all this kind of stuff. But then once you're hooked, then they pull back, and then it becomes crumb rewards, right? Like, I like how you're behaving right now. You're being very whatever, exactly how I need you to be or want you to be. And so here, take a little bit. And then you're like, oh, like you're just so starving for these crumbs from these other people. Fuck that. No more of that. Right? It's like, oh, it's just so liberating, especially being able to see that, right? Recognize like, oh, that's appealing to a part of me that doesn't feel confident within themselves. And so they're reliant on the other for that. And that's too much power to give to somebody, especially somebody who will abuse that power, right? So yeah, there are so many amazing benefits. It's worth doing the work. It's hard to do the work, because I like the whole energy open and feeling everything, what's mine, what's theirs. I had to pull away from everybody in my life. Everybody I pulled away from and went into hermit solitude and really connected with my own sphere and what was in it. And so now, I mean, there's practices that you can do for pulling your energy in so that you're not this wide open. I mean, I think that's a good skill set. There's a time and a place where you're like, whoa, okay, I collected information. I know everything that's mine. You know, everything that's not mine, that's not relevant, can stay outside of the thing. There's things that you can do to protect yourself. But you need to understand and you need to be able to feel like you need a baseline set on what is yours, right? So so that's what you're doing in the work, is you're creating a baseline. And I mean, this has just been my journey. I imagine it's going to be different for everybody, but I think there are some transferable skills at the very least. Having somebody on the other side of it going, you got this, you can do it, can be really encouraging, right? And so I can be that for you. You've got this. Right? Because how amazing would this world be if we were all just walking around empowered, right? Having real relationships that are open and honest and reciprocating and loving and not based on some weird codependency and necessity, validation, exchange, energy sucking. Like you're basically rewiring your system to produce and receive its own energy, instead of being reliant on other people, right? That whole energy vampire sucking thing. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't even aware that that's what they're doing. We villainize people and be like, oh, they're vampires or energy suckers or whatever. They're unconsciously doing that. I mean, there are sociopaths or whatever that are like doing it on purpose. Maybe, I don't even know, right? It's none of my business unless it's in my business. Then it's my business, and then I'm like, no business for you. Anyways, yeah, so I hope that kind of helps in some way, that that space, you can reclaim your attic and make it a beautiful Zen garden. You can do whatever you want in that space because it's clean and clear and bright. And I wish that for you. I want that for you because rent is expensive. and if you're like me and need extra studio spaces, this is a room that is available, that's not being used properly. So yeah, and then you've got this open space that you can start your spiritual journey if that's what you so desire. But I think I think that just kind of happens because you're healing on this quantum level. You can't go back into the past. You can't go back to those moments that have happened physically. So the only way to do it is mentally, right? Emotionally, spiritually. So yeah, there you have it. And that's why I got into doing the tarot, because I needed to reestablish this relationship with my intuitive self. And so I'm using tarot to do that. And it keeps confirming, it's definitely for people who have done the work, and the beautiful potential byproducts of having done the work as well. So yeah, check those out if you've done the work, or if you need a little encouragement of what could be coming your way when you finish doing the work. If you need some help, right? Little incentive. Little incentives are fine. Whatever you got to do, right, to get through it. But yeah, no, I had spent, there's a lot of crying, there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of emotional purging, physical purging, releasing. It's a whole thing, and it takes as long as it takes. It takes as long as it takes. So have compassion with yourself. You're worth it. You are worth this effort that you make to free yourself. That's what you're doing. You're freeing yourself. So yeah, I wish you all the luck on that journey. And yeah, if you, I don't know, need some help or guidance or support, send me an email and share your story. I do have some intuitive gifts, and I really can get a sense of things, and might be able to offer something from a different perspective. So yeah, if you would like to, then do it. Okay, so that's my spiel for today, and then you are integrated, right? Then you have all these shadow aspects, like that weird beast hiding in the corner. Now you're tamed it, and it's yours, and it's there as a protector instead of some creepy, stealthy, scared creature that sneaks down and eats all your food when you're sleeping, right? That you're unaware of. And that's the integrating of your shadow selves. But yeah, okay, there you have it for today. Thanks for listening. And good luck on your journey, because you're worth it. Okay, love you. Bye.